Welcome to CWU Live. I'm Michael Walker, and on today's show, I'm joined by Tony Bouch. Tony is the newly elected Outdoor Assistant Secretary for the CWU. So, first of all, congratulations is in order. You've been in the job since Monday, I think?
I have indeed, yes. So thanks very much. I'm proud and privileged to be here today with you, Michael, and obviously representing the CWU as the new Outdoor Assistant Secretary. I was informed on the 10th of October that following the close of nominations that I was the elected candidate. So absolutely an honour to be here tonight with yourself.
Yeah, we were talking before because you were unopposed,
Yep.
which can make it seem like it wasn't very competitive, but you think you might have won some sort of competition, which is getting lots and lots of branch nominations, potentially more than anyone before you. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the closing nominations. I think it was over 70 branches that nominated myself for the role. As I said, I'm proud for that number, and also I'm proud of the fact that the branches have put their faith in me to fulfil the role for the next 5 years and represent the delivery members and the cleaning members to the best of my ability.
Yeah, exciting. Yeah, congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
We'll be spending most of today's show talking about your background at the beginning and then your vision for how the union can best represent its outdoor members. We've got lots of questions already come in. Some of them we'll see videos of people from around the country. Others will be your questions that you've put in the YouTube chat live. So if you do have questions while we're talking, do put them in that chat. This show is about you guys. We want to know what your questions, what your concerns are. Before we get to that, though, let's start briefly with some political news which impacts the industrial sector. And that's this. The government is considering extending the time unions are allowed to go on strike without reballoting their members. And this is a story from the BBC. They write this: under existing legislation, if workers vote to take industrial action, the mandate expires after 6 months and unions are required to hold another ballot to extend it. But a consultation document produced by the government said the mandate could be extended to a year. It said due to unions being very likely to win a second ballot, keeping the 6-month rule would add administrative costs to them. Tony, is this something we should be, I suppose it's not an announcement yet, this is a consultation document, but if this were to go into the new Workers' Rights Bill, would this be something to celebrate?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think in 2022/2023, in the last dispute we had with the employer, we had to go through exactly that situation where on 2 occasions we had to reballot because of the 6-month rule. So, and we delivered a really high turnout and over the threshold. So it just adds in complexities that are not needed for both the trade unions and actually trying to resolve the dispute. So the bill, if it's agreed, I think will be a benefit to all parties involved in disputes and obviously for our members as well. And
if it's very likely to win it anyway, what difference does it make to not have to do it? Is it mainly financial, that it's sort of like an administrative cost to get that vote, or will this increase your leverage with the employer?
So in the sense of cost, it will cost the trade unions and obviously a cost to our membership in terms of having to go through that process again, obviously writing out to members, reballoting, the poster votes, etc., etc. But conversely, normally when you go through that reballoting process, both parties stop talking because the employer goes, your ballot's ended, you're going through it again, and you probably add a couple of months into an elongated dispute at that point anyway. So
it actually doesn't work in anyo's favour, it just slows everything down.
Absolutely.
That makes
a bureaucratic process. I think the end to it would be welcome for all trade unions.
Yeah. We're going to talk about lots of issues going on in the union as the show goes on. Let's begin with some background. Who are you? I know you worked as a postman from 1995 in Plymouth. Can you talk about sort of your career in Royal Mail and then in the union as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you just said, started at West Park Delivery Office in 1995. I think 29 years to 1 month to be precise, pretty much. So then moved across into distribution, CW representative for deliveries and for distribution. Then progressed to be a branch secretary for many years of the Plymouth and East Cornwall branch, and I think I'd like to represent those members really well throughout that time. And I think that was acknowledged, I think, in 2011 when I stood to be on the postal executive as a first-time candidate, got onto the union's postal executive, and from then been onto the national executive in 2015. And obviously as I say, 2 weeks ago, elected into the role as Outdoor Assistant Secretary and started that role on Monday.
And because I'm still fairly new to sort of understanding all the CWU structures, at what point is it the case that you became sort of a full-time union official as opposed to a postman or someone working in a delivery office with some extra duties? At what point does it become a sort of full-time job?
So when I became the branch secretary of Plymouth East Cornwall branch, that attracted full-time release. But obviously, since then, obviously, when I come onto the postal executive, 2011, you were co-opted onto an secondment agreement, but pretty much been full-time representative of the CWU since about 2006.
And you enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the best jobs you could ever have.
And has it changed much in that time?
I think it's changed a lot. I think I think I'm very lucky to be a full-time representative. We've got local reps out in our workplaces who probably don't enjoy the release that they should get, and that is the hardest job. But I'm someone that gets out into offices on a regular basis, meets our representatives, meets our members, walks the floor, engages with people, and that for me is the best part of the job, and that's what I want to do going forwards as part of being outdoor secretary. I want to get into delivery offices, I want to engage with our members, engage with our cleaners, and see what they go through day in, day out, and the troubles that they face, and then be the person that tries to fix those problems for them going forwards.
And I mean, we are going to talk about this in detail, but I suppose sort of to set us off, if you were a postie in 1995 and you've been representing posties for the last 10 years or so, what would you say sort of the main ways in which the job of a postie has changed since the 90s and now? Because that's a 30-year period, really.
No, absolutely. It's massively changed. I think, when I started, we had 2 deliveries. So we'd go out on a first delivery, come back, have your meal ready, go back out on a second delivery. We then changed in 2003 into 1 delivery. And then since then, we've gone through a huge change in terms of the number of days that people work in the offices. We've gone through changes in the network in terms of, pipeline changes. We've gone through changes to the role of a postal worker now. I think it's the hardest job that is in Royal Mail Group. If you think about it now, postal workers are walking anywhere between 8 and 13 miles on average a day. If you said to somebody now, go and run or walk 2 marathons a week, people would just laugh at you. Our postal workers do that day in, day out, week in, week out, and cover that distance. So the job is tough. The nature of the job is changing in terms of traffic changing between letters and parcels. People want their delivery in safe places, etc., etc. So it's massively changed, I think, from when I first started in 1995 to where I am now.
And again, another thing that sort of I've noticed in the short time I've been working here doing these shows is the number of people who sort of comment saying they feel like they're being really badly treated by management, and people are really pissed off about it, frankly. I suppose, could you talk about your understanding of people's struggles in the workplace and their disquiet in the workplace, and what you think you can sort of prioritise to try and rectify that, let's say?
Yeah. So look, I think all of us would be aware of the fact that our members believe that the job now, in lots of areas, and the culture has changed for the worse, and look, it's going to be my responsibility, along with the other unions, national officers, to try and fix that. I've got some ideas, I've got strategies to do that. We've started out with Royal Mail this week in earnest to try and make some progression, and we've got to fix some of those problems that are in those offices, whether it be a poor revision, whether it be the way people are being treated in their workplace, whether it's the fact that we just haven't got enough bodies in there to deliver the service, USO and quality of service, and that whole mix of, people want to come to work and do a good job, deliver the service for the public, but they also want to be treated fairly, and we've got to get back to that point. And because of the change in job, i.e. the change between letters and parcels, me as an OPG doing a delivery, if I get 50 extra parcels today, that's 50 minutes. Where do I miraculously get 50 minutes? So we've got to find the right balance, and we need to give our reps the tools to do the job in revisions, but we've got to support our members, and our delivery members really do need to be given the credit for what they do day in, day out for Royal Mail.
Let's go to a film made by the CW media team in Basingstoke with a couple of questions for you from members.
Congratulations to Tony on his new appointment as Outdoor Secretary. Obviously, over the last 18 months, we've had a few issues with deliveries. After the imposed revision they put in, they took out 27 jobs, and I don't think we've recovered from that, basically. The number one for me is recruitment. Under the new contracts is getting the staff in and retaining them.
The one thing I'd like to change, ideally, is the oversize. It's not consistent. One day we'll have it taken off us, the next day we won't, and it needs to be more consistent so that people know what we're doing every morning. Otherwise it can hold us up by waiting to find out if our oversize are being taken off us or not.
And as ever, thank you for your questions. It really does, I think, liven up this show, having CWU members asking our guests sort of directly those questions. So let's take them in turn, I suppose. So the first one was about 27 jobs being lost after revisions and lots of concerns about recruitment and retention. And this is in the Basingstoke delivery office. Yeah. How would you respond to that first question there?
Yeah, look, so to the colleagues from Basingstoke Delivery Office, look, thanks for the questions that you put forward. It's really appreciated. I think we've gone through, obviously went through a bit of dispute. Revisions were imposed, and when revisions are imposed, we get to a situation where they don't take into the local factors, they don't take into the CDB reps have a voice for their members in those workplaces, and the revisions land badly. We've got to learn the lessons from that. We've started to do that, I think, this week. We made some real progress with Royal Mail on a national disagreement that we had on delivery revisions. We found a resolution this week, which I think's been really well received from our divisional reps and from the area reps that I've spoken to since we did that yesterday. So that's the first positive. And we've made it clear to Royal Mail that we're not going to support poorly planned revisions. It's in nobody's interest for a revision to land poorly because, one, it affects the members in that workplace, and two, it affects the service the public get. So if we have to learn our lessons, we'll do that. So we've started to pick that up. That then links into the treatment of new entrants' terms and conditions. We know that's an unpopular part of the Business Recovery and Transformation Agreement. Martin, as a DGSP, is leading on talks with Royal Mail to try and make progress to increase those members' terms and conditions and enhance their pay. But likewise, the retention is an issue in delivery offices. If people aren't treated fairly in an office because of the terms and conditions are on, we do see examples where they leave after 3 months because they've been pushed from pillar to post in a delivery office, and then we have to go through the cycle again. So it's in everyone's interest that we treat the new entrants that walk into a delivery office fairly. We treat them well, we train them, we give them the tools to do the job, and then ultimately they can then get to a situation where they have long careers in Royal Mail because they will stay in the job because they feel it's a job that they can take pride in. That's what we've got to get back to.
Later in the show we'll have a couple of questions from new entrants and we can talk about those issues in more detail. There was also in that clip a question about oversized mail, and the concern there basically seemed to be inconsistency. Sometimes it was that lady's job to deliver the oversized mail. Sometimes it was waiting for someone else to pick it up. Lots of confusion there. And I suppose it's demoralising, isn't it, when people don't know what is their responsibility on any given day? Yeah,
so look, this is where revisions go wrong, and it's the practicalities then of having to pick up the pieces afterwards. So in Basingstoke Delivery Office, they would have probably introduced dedicated parcel routes, which was dealing with the format 3 and 4 parcels, the bigger than a shoebox size, putting them onto dedicated vans, and depending on how that revision was planned, the lady's walk could have probably had a few extra delivery points added in exchange for that workload. And then if the business are not covering those dedicated parcel routes, what they do is they put the parcels back onto the individual's route. And that's where it goes wrong, because you've planned a revision by taking those parcels off the individual. You then giving her additional workload that replaces that. You cannot then every day keep passing those parcels back. And that's where, as I say, the lady that made the comment in the film was feeling that frustration, because it impacts on her and it also impacts on the customer.
And I know, again, this is something that's been fairly new to me, sort of coming into this. But people get really frustrated about parcels being prioritised, because people want to feel like they're doing their duty in delivering those letters, and then they get distracted on the parcel round, and it all seems a bit of a mess and inconsistent. What's your understanding of the prioritisation, of parcels, and why people seem to be finding that so frustrating?
So I think we're in a situation where there were situations where deliveries were just being left days and days, and in some instances weeks. We're not going out on delivery.
And that's letters, or
that's letters and letters in the main. In some instances, it is parcels because there isn't enough bodies in the office to deal with that. As a result of that, obviously the business did have conversations with the CWU to try and come up with a process where we would rotate those walks so that those deliveries did get out if there was a resourcing issue. But we do know that parcels are still given priority. And the reason why they're given priority is because in the main, those parcels are tracked right throughout the network. So, Mrs. Smith, who's looking for their parcel, can look at her tracking number and can see it's arrived in a delivery office. They expect it to be delivered on that day. And that's why, in some instances, our members are being told to prioritise that. Now, we've got to get underneath that to ensure that we want to deliver a proper service. We want to deliver a service for the customer. We want our members to work in an environment which is a good place to work, and for everybody to have pride in the job. At this moment in time, that isn't there. It's going to be on my responsibility, on some of the other officers' responsibilities, to fix that, and that everyone comes into a delivery office and we deliver everything that's due to be delivered for the public. And when people go home, they feel like they can walk out of that office, they're respected, and they feel pride in the job that they do.
I mean, on a national level, it's going to be your priority. On a local level, or sort of, an individual office, it's going to be a lot about reps, isn't it? And my understanding is that one of the elements that made the previous dispute so bitter is that sort of some were sort of marginalised the reps, and you lost a bunch of reps. Is there going to be a sort of coherent strategy to try and make sure there is a rep in every workplace? Yeah,
absolutely. So look, as I said, I think at the start of the show, Michael, I said that the local reps job is probably the hardest job in the CWU. I've got to give them, the CWU's got to give them the tools to do the job. We've got to give them the necessary release and the support to do that, and the training. And likewise, where we haven't got reps, we've got to find a way to encourage our members to become CWU reps. And all of that is work that's in progress. I think I've got a things to do list that's probably got over 50 things on it at this moment in time. But that's a positive challenge. And we want to reinvigorate our workplaces. We want more people to be CWU reps, and we want a greater voice in the workplaces. And we're going to make that happen.
Let's go to another question. This is Sean from the Wakefield delivery office.
I'm from Wakefield here. We've just gone through a revision. We was given reassurances by the office manager regarding the smoothness of it would go because of the last revision. What happened was WF4s, which I represent, went as well as could be expected, but then there seemed to be a sea change for the rest of the areas. I'm just wondering why that it seemed to be rushed through and they wanted it done as soon as.
So that's another question about revisions there. We sort of talked about it a bit earlier, but I mean, is there anything specifically you'd respond to Sean there?
Yeah, so look, Sean, obviously it was pleasing to hear that W4 went in successfully, because that's a positive, and that's what we want, isn't it, in terms of that. For the rest of the office not going in as it should have been planned, I think this is something we've tried to tackle with the business previously around their deployment plan for revisions. So they've reduced the revision plan in terms of its duration. And we've tried to say to the business, it's not in your interest to continue deploying a revision and fast-tracking parts of it to get it over the line when it's not going to be successful, because then you get the example that Sean just said, where one part of the office is functioning really well, 3 parts are not functioning well. Now, the positive is we've had a number of revisions that were due to go live before the end of this month that the business have agreed with us that it's not in their interest to do that, and they've been paused now until January Q4, which is a positive. And we're hoping now, because we've got a resolution to a number of the disagreements we had in place nationally, that will help to resolve some of the better planning and put a fix in place, so that when those revisions that are delayed are deployed in January, there'll be a better set of revisions deployed right across an office, not just parts of offices.
And this seems like it's probably a related question. Per Linderoff says, why is it if the CWU and Royal Mail are working together that they are forcing through revisions using geo-route? Yep. Geo-route's a new term for me, but so I'll sort of pass that.
Yeah, no. So look, I think the geo-route part of the revision and trying to force that through, we've definitely stopped that from happening. Again, the business have confirmed in writing to us that no revision will be forced through if there's not an agreement in place. So again, the individual that's just asked the question, if their office is forcing through a revision without an agreement, then look right into my department and we'll get that looked into straight away. The second part of the question around geo-route revisions is, Again, a geo route is a tools-based system, but if the data that's held in an office is poor, then the geo route revision is going to pour out a poor revision. So it's important that everything that's in the base data is accurate. And again, that probably supports the point that we need CDW reps in offices to make that happen.
Let's talk about a sort of national issue, which I suppose, in a way, it's a national revision, isn't it? The USO, so the Universal Service Obligation. On the show before, I've talked to Dave and Martin about it. Do you have any sort of particular ideas or opinions or strongly held beliefs you sort of bring to the table when it comes to USO revisions?
So look, we're currently having some, obviously Martin, you just referenced Martin and Dave are in conversations with the business and the government around what does the USO look like in the future. Look, we've got to get to a situation, we're not currently delivering the quality of service that Royal Mail was expected to in the targets that Ofcom have put in place. We want to strive to make that happen and understand in areas of the country where we're not doing that, what's the root cause, and fix that root cause. When it comes to the reform of the Universal Service Obligation, look, my own personal view is we've got to be in the room. We have got to learn the lessons from the dispute in 2022, where I do believe that we didn't put forward some of the CWU vision, some of the CWU strategies, and potentially CWU alternatives. And if we don't engage with Royal Mail, if we don't engage with Ofcom, then potentially we will face a situation where both of them will come with a fait accompli for us, which won't be in our members' interests. So we've got to get in there, we've got to start influencing it, and we need to use our ideas. And I've made it clear to a number of the CW reps across the UK, whether that's divisional reps and area reps, that I will be using some of their expertise and their knowledge and including in that debate, because this is not going to be done with a small group of people. We need everyone pulling in the right direction.
And just to reference back to what you were saying earlier, so you were saying, when you started as a postie, there were 2 deliveries a day, now there's 1 delivery a day. Was that a previous change to the USO?
Yes, it would have been, yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been a previous change to USO, and there's going to be another change to the USO. And one of the things up for debate is whether there'll be fewer days where posts goes out.
Absolutely. So currently, obviously, where the Universal Service Obligation is 6 days a week to 33 million addresses, Monday to Saturday. Obviously, Royal Mail is looking to make a change that is the class and a speed of delivery, optimised delivery model, which is still first class mail being delivered 6 days a week to the 33 million addresses and the delivery points, but reducing second class and non-priority mail to just being delivered Monday to Friday. So we need to get into that room. I know our members would support more Saturdays off. And what does that mean? But again, if we don't engage with that, then there's the potential that we could end up with a far worse scenario of a change to the USO. Myself and one of my CW colleagues, David Robertson, attended a sort of a Uni Global event two and a half weeks ago, and in Copenhagen, and they've just moved to a 1 day a week letter delivery, which has been a situation where they went from 111 workplaces to 11. And the job losses are huge. So they weren't involved in those negotiations with their government and their employer. I think it would be a travesty for us if we stayed outside the room. So we need to be in there and influence it and get the right deal for our members.
Wow, 1 day a week. I didn't realise that. Because I think in Germany it's gone down to 3 days, hasn't it?
Has,
and then in Copenhagen, 1 day. Wow. Let's go to a couple more questions. We've got 2 questions from new entrants in Glasgow. And first of all, this is Alana.
Hi there, my name's Alana and I work from the G2122 unit in Glasgow. My question to you is the new contracts for new starts. Why is it fair that I'm coming in and doing the same job and getting much reduced pay, terms, conditions, like unfair days off? This is a physically demanding job. We'd be looking to entice new people in with these contracts. Why do you think that's acceptable, and why would it entice people into this role, which is actually a pretty good job?
That was Alana talking about the unfairness, I suppose, of new starters getting worse long-term, or worse pay and terms and conditions than long-term workers. And we've also got another question from a new starter in Glasgow. This is Archie.
Hi Tony, my name's Archie and I'm a new starter from the G21, G22 unit. I just wanted to ask you a question on the new contracts that we've got. Basically, I'm a bit confused with the difference at the moment. It feels like I'm doing more work than some of the older guys here and getting paid less. especially with the unpaid breaks. I'm not so happy with having to continually work over my time each day as well, and there doesn't seem to be any significant cut off for me. Most days I'm out until 5, sometimes 6 p.m. delivering, and I don't think that's great compared to some of the older guys here in the unit. It is creating a bit of a difference between us two. So I'd like you to answer my question and see what you can do to change our contracts and make them equal to everyone else's here.
Sort of talking about the unfairness, but then also Archie was sort of saying the division that creates in the workplace, which I suppose, is a real challenge really to solidarity in the workplace, isn't it? If you've got two sets of people on different conditions. But yeah, how would you respond to Alana and Archie?
Yeah, so look, to Alana and Archie and G2122, look, again, thanks for the questions, and obviously good that you're CW members as well. But obviously, look, I think the key thing for me to say on that is the CW hasn't agreed to the new entrance terms and conditions. The CW, those terms and conditions were imposed by the employer. We've agreed that we would collectively now form a joint working group to try and improve them, and we're actively started that conversation. So Martin met the business on Tuesday to try and progress that. He's put forward a number of ideas and strategies around that, because it is about fairness. It is about fairness in workplaces in terms of two individuals working side by side, one with a paid meal relief, one with not, one with potentially. I think the new entrance terms and conditions now are 54 pence an hour. I think maybe 57 pence an hour greater than the minimum wage. That doesn't entice people. I think the earlier question around from Basingstoke was about retention. If you think we're about to go into a period where, and particularly for Alana and Archie for the questions in Scotland with the weather, for a winter period where individuals would potentially go and get a job, whether it be in Lidl or Aldi or somewhere like that, and be paid probably the same amount of money, and yet our new entrants, or all of our members to be fair, are working outside in those conditions, 2 marathons a week, etc., walking. Everyone should be on the same pace. So that's the union strategy. That's what the union is making as a priority, and we're doing everything we can to get that enhanced. And that will pick up things about the fairness. It will pick up around the hours they work. It will pick up about Sundays, because we know that they're doing Sunday attendances and more Sundays, which is unfair. And we will pick up that unpaid meal relief part. And hopefully we will see some positive developments in that in the coming weeks, months.
Yeah, we've got a question from DSW357. I assume that's not their real name. On YouTube. What's the story with the Daniel Kretinsky bid? Everything's gone quiet in regards to that. What's happening? I mean, in your... First of all, just I know you will have a bit of an update, but first of all, is it your role? Will that put you in the room in those discussions, or is that more? We're talking Dave and Martin there who'll be having those discussions. Yeah.
So in terms of the CW's negotiators, that will be Dave and Martin. But obviously, Dave and Martin are fed back to the CW national officers this week. A bit of an update in terms of the progression of that. Obviously, the takeover bid from Daniel Kretinsky EP Group is linked to, obviously, legislation and regulation that's in place, and there's quite a lot of loopholes around that. And likewise, the current position is that the takeover is subject to a review by government in terms of in line with the National Securities Act. So once that's, I think, been completed, I think more will start to come out and you'll see more developments. But it really is at this moment in time right in that mix in terms of the legislation and regulation. I think stops Royal Mail doing any updates, and it stops what is the latest development on the takeover until that's passed the Securities Act. And I think then more will start to come out.
Yeah. So in a way, it's sort of difficult
to answer it 100%, but there is discussions taking place with both parties, both Royal Mail and with EP Group.
Yeah. HQ Truman asks, why are Royal Mail investing in more and more parcel sortation machines and not in roadworthy vans and enough staff to clear DOs? So that's delivery offices, right? The job is becoming more mentally untenable and physically unsafe.
Yeah. So look, I think the business have confirmed to the CW in recent weeks and months that they are about to go for another upgrade of vehicles. So I think they're looking to purchase 5,000 new vehicles, which is a positive, which will replace the fleet. But obviously, that they would argue to us, there's only one pot of money. We will pay. The conversation we were having earlier on around enhancing the new entrance terms and conditions, we want to fix that, but that's going to cost Royal Mail money. If they agree with the CW and say we get to a leveling up, or we improve them over a period of time, they'll say, well, that has to be at the behest of somewhere else in that regard. So that obviously that comes into the mix. But in terms of the question around the number of points that we have to think through, we'll be getting involved in those conversations with the employer, and we'll look to try and pick that. But there are examples where individuals, anyone on this, we're watching this tonight, in the comments, who believe that their offices and their vehicles are not fit for purpose, then let us know and we'll make sure we get that raised up to the employer.
And I suppose you're saying, if you say this to the employer says, well, I mean, you can even have new vans, or you can have better terms and conditions for your new entrants. That's sort of like what they put to you.
Yeah.
The commenters seem to be saying they should invest in vans instead of investing in parcel sortation machines.
So the parcel
what do you sort of make of that?
Yeah, so like the parcel sort machines, the company have announced another 5 that they purchased earlier on this year that's going in. It's probably a double-edged sword for us, because the parcel sort machines that are going into mail centres is actually securing those mail centres' futures, because they're not going to introduce a parcel sort machine if they're then looking to close buildings and close mail centres.
That shows at least some investment.
So it is investment, it is security for those members working in those mail centres. So there's a positive on that. Obviously, there is a lot of growth in parcels, and obviously handling parcels manually for us for raw mail will cause a potential delay in the network. So we want to get that through, and obviously, look, I think it's it links back into what customers want now. Customers want tracking. Parcel machines give tracking for customers, and it's a growth area that we want to support, because that will protect our jobs going forwards as well.
That's interesting. So when I hear parcel sorting machine, I just think they're replacing, sortation by hand with sortation by a machine. But you're saying it also means that they can sort of raise the standards to the customer, because it's the machine which allows the tracking to take place. Am I sort of on the right track?
You are, yeah. So there's more barcodes.
No pun intended, of course.
No, absolutely. But there's more barcodes on the machines that reads it. It's more visibility. Obviously, it does do away with some of the manual jobs, but it does give people, because obviously OPGs have to feed the machines, they have to take your orcs off it. So it is jobs. But what it does do is it does protect those mail centres that are getting a parcel sort machine.
OPG,
operational postal grade.
I'm learning a lot. Let's go to John also from Glasgow.
Hello Tony, name's John McGeever, G2122. I just want to ask you a question. I'm 61, arthritis in my right ankle is really bad, and yet I'm expected to do duties the same time as the younger guys in here that are under 30. I don't understand that. What are you going to do to help us?
That was John. He's 61, got arthritis in his right ankle, and he's saying he's doing the same job as the younger staff. So, a bit interesting, because we've got two very different perspectives from the same delivery office in Glasgow. We've got sort of younger workers who are feeling hard done by because their terms and conditions are worse, and then an older worker who's feeling hard done by because he's suffering health conditions that come with age. How would you respond to that question from John?
Yeah, so I think, John, again, thanks for the question. I probably need to get myself up to G21 in Glasgow because 3 of the questions that have come in from there. But I think that we want to get into a situation where, obviously, the business should be making reasonable adjustments for John if he has got arthritis and obviously build that into his job. Obviously, we're currently looking at what is the job design. So we want to get into a situation where is there other activities that John could be doing, parcel deliveries, van deliveries. Again, sometimes that's not popular because it's a change of attendance patterns. But one of the things we're looking to do in the USO negotiations and any reform of the USO is potentially where first class is delivered on specific days outside of a core delivery, that would be on the same attendance pattern as core delivery OPGs. So in that scenario, John could get to a situation of just doing van delivery, delivering first class items within his office. And then it's about, for me, it's about me and my team going forwards, whether that's postal executive members, divisional reps, looking to build revisions that says, how do we build innovative duty patterns? How do we build hybrid working? Can we get into rotations where you might do a delivery one week and then do a van delivery the following week? Because in John's example, probably got 6 weeks leave. There's 46 weeks of the year where he's in work, doing the job week in, week out. If we can limit that impact and put a hybrid duty in rotation, then that reduces the number of weeks that he does delivery, which will be a positive. Now, that might not solve all of John's problems, but we've got to try and give some tools for the reps to be able to build that sort of structure in place.
And forgive me, a question for my benefit. When it comes to these routes, so presumably, a delivery office pumps out a bunch of routes that need to be done, right? And presumably the workers there are going to find some of them more attractive than others. How's it decided how they're distributed? How's it decided who gets given what route?
So when we've gone through that major change in the delivery office, we normally have a re-sign, which is done on seniority. So people will pick a routes. But again, every office is different. Every route is different. So I might do a delivery on a HCT, which is a high capacity trolley, and push that around. And I might have 500 delivery points. That might take me 4.5 hours, for example. Some of them could be on a rural delivery in a van, but because of the geographical nature of that route, the route could take 6 hours, but they only deliver to 200 delivery points because there's 5 miles of a garden of a farm track. So every job's different. Every delivery is different. The challenge we've got, I think, and this is one of the things we're going to pick up going forwards, is Royal Mail is very dogmatic in its approach to everything is office based, but now the granularity of the change between you could be on that delivery I explained on a rural and I could be on the HGT, the impact on our individual jobs is greater, and we've got to find a way of giving some more reassurances for individuals that they have got the time to do their own individual duty, not just on an office base.
Right, John Bouch, parcels. We are used by Amazon because they cannot handle their one job. Yes, they pay Royal Mail, but the legally protected service of letters are overridden by the requirements of a private company. Now, this is something that's become sort of that I'm learning loads about, which is that Royal Mail's in a difficult position because it's got this USO. It always has to deliver everything that it's asked to deliver, essentially. But then Amazon can say, well, we'll deliver the profitable stuff. Anything that's unprofitable and difficult, we'll give it to you guys. And I suppose that creates financial problems for Royal Mail. Does it also create problems for Royal Mail workers, or is it?
Yeah, John's 100% right. So what we're finding, and this is like live examples of this, so like Royal Mail's not going to turn down business, and Amazon is one of Royal Mail's.
It's not allowed to turn down business, is it?
In terms of parcels, they're not necessarily regulated, but obviously letters, Royal Mail have to deliver the letters. In terms of Amazon parcels that are coming into the Royal Mail network, Royal Mail have done contracts with Amazon about direct injection and where that comes in. But what we're finding is Amazon on specific days of the week or geographic areas will decide it's too costly for us to deliver in Cornwall because of the rural aspect of it, or it's too costly to deliver in Scotland, parts of Scotland. We'll give all of those parcels as part of our commercial agreement with Royal Mail to Royal Mail to deliver. So in essence, it's dumping in where they don't want to deliver, where it's not profitable for them to, or where they can't get someone who's on a 0-hour contract or paid per drops per hour, where they can't get somebody to do that sort of work. They give it to Royal Mail. That impacts on our members. And I'll come back to this point. If I'm on a delivery route and I get an extra 50 parcels to deliver today, for me as an individual, that's circa 50 minutes of additional time. Where do I get that time to do that when my route is as it is? And that's the example that I think that what John's pointing out about the unfairness about how Amazon are dumping into Royal Mail.
And so is the issue there one with sort of national policy in the USO, or is that Royal Mail signed an agreement with Amazon that where the terms weren't great? I mean, what's your sort of opinion on how this happened and how that might be improved?
My own opinion is that Royal Mail signed a commercial agreement with Amazon, which Royal Mail then suffer the consequences. Right. Amazon just dump into Royal Mail's network where they don't want to deliver, where it's not profitable from.
So you think Royal Mail should have sort of bargained a bit more in those negotiations?
But potentially price up, or said restricted where Royal Mail can put that into, because in scenarios it will be a customer gets this is what the customers will see. I've ordered an Amazon a parcel on Amazon. I then get a delivery notification to say my parcel is being delivered by Royal Mail, and then Royal Mail get the blame when that's not delivered. Right. And that's what the LPG, I think, or that's what John's articulating in his question, really.
When would that be renegotiated? If there's a commercial
I think that's
agreement?
outside of our gift as a view. But
yeah.
I think we want to talk to the employer about new products and services and about the whole operation. And we've said to them, I think we've got to look at parcels per se about what Royal Mail delivers, and how can we make that better. And I think we'll form that part of our new products and services discussions.
Yeah, I assume the CW aren't in the room when the Royal Mail and Amazon are deciding on their commercial contract.
No, absolutely not.
But you can try and give feedback.
Yeah, and I think when we have given that feedback, we have said that, and I think I think the business now are starting to listen to some of that feedback we're giving and the challenges it brings as well.
Nick Hartley, every single van in our delivery office is on its last legs. We lose so much time with breakdowns and repairs. when can we expect the tools to do the job? So I suppose we kind of have talked about this a little bit before, but it's sort of, this does sound like quite a dire situation if they're constantly losing time with breakdowns and repairs.
Yeah, so look, Nick, if you can let us know what office you're from, we can investigate that and get that looked into, and put that on the radar, because like in some instances it should already be being picked up in the area by the Royal Mail managerial team. We know the negative impact that having vehicles off-road means to our members, because ultimately if they haven't got a van to do the delivery, they're going to struggle, aren't they? So if Nick lets us know what office it is, we can make sure we get that looked into.
And what happens in that situation? So if you've got, you know, if you're a Royal Mail worker, you're in a delivery office and your van's not, you know, fit to drive, then you can't deliver your post for that day. What happens? So do they have to then deliver twice as much post the following day, or does the post not get delivered? I'm trying to work out the sort of how this all works.
So in the specific answer, normally Royal Mail will get hire vehicles in, but again, that's a cost. I think it comes back to what is the root cause? What is the root cause of why are the vehicles in the situation they are, in the dire state they're in, as Nick articulated, and how do we fix that? So we've got to do that first and foremost, and if Nick lets us know, we'll deal with that with the employer. The second part, though, is Royal Mail have got their fleet and their workshops in situ. So, you know, is it that the workshops in Nick's area are under-resourced and understaffed? And is that the reason why vehicles that are being put out of service or off-road taking so long to fix? And in fact, that could be one of the issues, but we'd have to get underneath that. And I can speak to one of my colleagues, Alan Tate, and ask him to do a bit of a deep dive in that for me.
Bouch and Peter. When do pay rise talks start for April? Will the talks be joined with the USO agreement changes?
I think Martin's already started having some preliminary discussions with the employer. The CWU committed to doing a policy forum with our reps and our branches on what would that look like. Obviously, depending on what happens with the takeover with EP Group, Daniel Kretinsky, that may well influence it. But obviously, we're alive to that. We've already started having some conversations as the union's national officers about what that could look like, and I'm sure when we get to an appropriate point, that whether it's a national briefing, a policy forum, that will get called by Martin, Dave as the two principal negotiators for the CWU.
We've got an acronym. I don't know.
Go on.
I'm taking a risk here. From Ken Howard. PDAs are the biggest change in the job. What do the union intend to do about the misuse of them by management?
Yeah, so it's a postal digital aid, that is. So it's the postal digital aid handheld device that an OPG would use, or a person would use on delivery.
OPG, office, postal.
Operational postal grade. So I
nearly got it.
We'll get those
operational. I will learn them soon.
We will learn those acronyms, but let's just call it delivery post person. It's the device that they use when they're on delivery, scanning the parcels, getting a customer to sign it. We know in some instances they're not fit for purpose. The company goes through a refresh every 3 to 5 years. We're at that point, I think, where the refresh needs to take place. They improved the battery life, but again, obviously, I think it's one of the things on the things to do list that I've got to tackle going forwards. And like, if I think there was a subtle question in there around the appropriate misuse of the data that the business are using. Again, if people have got examples around that, we can raise that and we'll get that looked into.
And what could that be?
Yeah, so I think what the way in which the question was implied was the manager says, well, you've been stopped on delivery for this period of time. They're looking at the PDA the day after the event. So the PDA cannot be looked at in a live situation, but a manager can look at it retrospectively and say, well, you left the office at this time, you came back at that time, there's a point here you stopped for 10 minutes for argument's sake.
Right, so it sort of spies on the worker. And then
it can be, but we've got agreements that make it crystal clear that shouldn't be used in that scenario. And again, if that is the case, then obviously they can let us know and we'll get that sorted.
That's very interesting. And again, for my purposes, I know that most of the people watching this might know this, so apologies if I'm taking up the time here. But so how it works, as opposed to you get your delivery route and then you sort of work until you've finished it, and if your kit isn't quite up to scratch, then that just means it takes longer and you finish later, or do you sort of finish it, your time's up and you say, sorry, I couldn't finish it today?
Yeah, no one's compelled to work past their finish time. So you got a delivery route. My delivery route had 500 delivery points on it, and I believed once I've got that prepped and I've got that sorted, ready to go out on delivery, if I don't think I can complete that, then I go to the manager in the office and say, I don't think I can complete. the manager makes the decision on whether I leave stuff behind, whether I deliver just from delivery point 1 to 400. They make that decision. It's not on me as the individual in post person in the office. And likewise, we're right there. We know there are challenges with the PDA sometimes in some of the weathers where they freeze, they stop working, and that is a problem because, look, as I said earlier on, with customer choice and scanning their barcodes and getting customers to sign it, if that freezes at the doorstep and it takes another 2 or 3 minutes for that to turn back on and off, that's frustrating, and that is a challenge then for our members.
John Knox, Scottish Mail was to be brought up by train. Did the hierarchy of the union know or have knowledge that Royal Mail were removing the trains completely and shifting it on to road?
No, we didn't. No, so not when it was announced after. So we went through the agreement and obviously did a network window review. Obviously went through a number of things, and after we'd completed network window review, the business made the decision to come off rail. A lot of that was around the ability to replace the rail network and the parts on it. Now, what should be happening in Scotland is that some of the work that's came off rail is going onto road should be advanced into Scotland. We know that's not happening now. So we've
what does that mean? So advanced into Scotland.
So we should be getting there earlier through the 24-hour period. So if we work on this premise, second class is dispatched in mail centres by midday. We know there are examples in Edinburgh and Glasgow, Inverness and Aberdeen, where that mail's not arriving until after 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be taking 16 hours for that mail to get there. We're alive to that fact. We know it's having an implication on our members in Scotland, where we're trying to improve the start and finish times that came in as part of the agreement. We're alive to it. It's being dealt with by myself, David Robertson, and obviously we're in the process of potentially escalating that up to Martin to deal with his interfaces with Royal Mail, because we know that is a problem. We've got to fix the work plan.
I was talking to Chris Webb a couple of weeks ago about the postal train. He used to do the route from Plymouth to London.
Yep,
are they still? Is any of it still delivered by train?
Nope.
It's
So
all road now.
Your point about Chris would have worked on the travelling post office, as it was called then, the TPO. And I once upon a time I would have been unloading that at the other end when it came back to Plymouth.
But it's all gone now.
It's all gone now. The TPOs have ceased.
Guy 36, can you confirm that Royal Mail want to adjust seasonal variation times in 2025 to 12 weeks of 24 minutes less per day in the summer, but 6 weeks with 48 minutes longer per day in November, December?
Absolutely not true. So we have had no conversations with the business about seasonal variation for 2025 into 2026. It's one of the first things I've done this week. I've contacted Royal Mail to say, in line with our agreement for this year, we haven't started our conversations about what seasonal variation would look like next year. We've got a meeting in the next 2 weeks to try and start that ball rolling, but it's certainly not going to be as that individuals just outlined. It won't be nowhere near like that at all. So,
and is there already some seasonal variation?
Yep. So
and that's because of Christmas cards and.
So we've high and low periods. So we agreed originally that there would be X amount of weeks above where individuals would work 39 hours, contracted to work 37. So they work 2 hours more in the high period. In the less period in the summer, they would work 35 hours. That sort of rebalanced itself this year. So we're just about to go into 5 weeks of the high season, so where our members will work the 39 if you're on full time. Next year, we haven't agreed anything at this moment in time, but it certainly won't be what the colleague that just raised that question will be. That's not true.
Interesting. Very concrete answer as well. I like that. Kenny Campbell, Scotland has been left to rot as far as earlier delivery times are concerned. We have heard countless times we are making progress, but all I'm hearing is either no news or bad news.
So look, Kenny, I know how emotive this is. I've met the Scotland divisional reps this morning, the Scotland area delivery reps and the area safety reps. I gave a commitment that I'd meet them on my first week, and I did that this morning, and we talked through the network window changes and some of the barriers that are being put in place by the business. We believe that the further mitigation that can be done to those start and finish times. Myself and Davey had a chat before I come on, I think, this session with yourself tonight about how we're going to progress that. And look, we're alive to it. I've given the divisional reps and the area reps in Scotland a commitment that we will be progressing that. And it's one of the things that's going to continue as soon as we finish the show, because there's a letter that's going to Royal Mail.
Well, I won't keep you much longer because I can see you have got stuff to do in a moment. Let's end on a sort of a couple more general questions. So first of all, I want to ask you about morale. And it does seem that in lots of parts of the workforce, there is fairly low morale at the moment, especially because of sort of changes which were made in the agreement. And I mean, we've heard about a bunch of them this evening, actually. And so what will your priorities be in terms of how to raise morale among members of the CWU in the divisions that you represent?
Yeah, so look, I think for everybody, I want to put pride back in the job. I think like when I started, everyone had pride in the job. No letters stayed in any office. No one was allowed out on delivery until the office was clear and everyone was ready to go out. We've got to improve the culture. We've got to be, I think it's not to criticise, but I think we've become very reactive. I'm coming from a platform and a strategy where we want to be proactive. We're not going to sit away and waiting for Royal Mail to come to the CWU with proposals. We're going to go to them. We're going to put proposals on the table. We're going to look to fix some of the problems in the delivery offices. As I say, we want to put pride back into those workplaces. We want to improve culture. And we want our members to come into work and feeling like they feel valued in the job that they do for Royal Mail, but also for the service they give to the public. And that's one of the main priorities I'm going to bring to doing the role that I've got now.
I suppose there's a conflicting, or maybe an internal tension there, because on the one hand, you're saying we want to be proactive and we want to be going to Royal Mail and saying, we think you should do it like this, instead of just being reactive. And they put a suggestion and you say whether you like it or not. But then there are other people who say, look, we're being treated terribly by Royal Mail. Why are you even in the room with them? We should have a more oppositional relationship to them. So sort of how do you navigate that?
Yeah, there is a challenge. So look, we'll navigate that in the sense of, look, it depends on what the root cause of why those individuals are being treated as poorly as they are. So is it a situation where there's 50 deliveries in an office and we've only got 35 people? Then there's never going to be a good place to work because you're running with 15 vacancies. So the root cause is fix the vacancies and then things will start to improve in that delivery office around that. So we've almost got to come, I think we've seen some, as I said earlier on, I think we've seen some progress with the employer over the last 2 weeks, particularly on some of the delivery issues that we've done. But look, it's not going to fix everything overnight, is it? And as I said earlier on, that things to do list I've got, it's on me to try and turn it from a things to do list into some positive statements with the employer, some positive developments, and it will start to sort of breathe that oxygen into our members in delivery where they start to see that sea change, and that's on me.
And as you said, it's sort of the local area reps who you think have the hardest job in the CWU. How are you going to be working with them? And I suppose when might CWU members expect to meet you as you're travelling around the country?
So look, I think I've already done. We did the local reps meeting on Tuesday. A briefing of all the local reps. So day 2 was already in there meeting all the local reps in Anglia. As I said, met all the divisional reps yesterday with some updates, and obviously want to get out and about, and that's one of the key things for me. I'm in the delivery office tomorrow morning in my own area, but over the next 2 weeks, I'm in Belfast next week in the delivery office, and the following week I will be Sheffield North or Sheffield South, I think. So get out there, speak to the members. In terms of the reps and our local reps and our area reps, so look, we're in the process now of coming up with some training for our reps. We're going to do that in some bite-sized chunks, so to give them the tools to do the job, to give them a little bit of a boost as well. I think that some of our reps feel like we haven't given them enough training over the last couple of years. It's been difficult because we've been in a dispute. So we will get the training for them. We will give them the tools to do the job, and I will be out visible for our members in delivery.
Tony Bouch, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a very interesting conversation.
No, thanks for having me. It's been brilliant. And I'll obviously look forward to doing some of these sessions again in the future. Yeah,
definitely. And thank you so much for all of your questions. It really does make these conversations so much more, I think, lively and productive when we've got so many questions in the YouTube chat, and also questions which are sent in beforehand. Really makes this show come alive. So really do appreciate that. An announcement before we end. This Saturday, Tommy Robinson and his supporters are assembling in central London. The CWU are big supporters of the anti-racism movement, so the people who are going to be marching against Tommy Robinson and his like. Dave Ward will be speaking at the Stand Up to Racism rally in central London, so please join that demonstration if you can. You can find out more information about that demonstration at the Stand Up to Racism website or their social media feeds. That about does it for this week. As always, we really appreciate you being here and supporting the union. And we are, if there is a question you would like answered by anyone on the show, or perhaps you've got any suggestions you want to put forward, comment below on any of these videos on YouTube. We do check them, or you can email us at cwu.org. And we'll see you again next week. Until then, stick with your union.